In the not-so-distant future, Earth has become increasingly uninhabitable due to ecological collapse and environmental ruin. In a bid to preserve humanity, giant interstellar sleeper ships like the Avalon are deployed, transporting thousands of colonists and crew members in suspended animation to a new world. Homestead 2, a habitable planet 120 years away. The Avalon carries 5,000 passengers and 258 crew members, all in hibernation pods. 30 years into the journey, the ship passes through a field of uncharted space debris. Although the vessel is equipped with meteor defenses, one large asteroid penetrates the ship's hull, triggering a chain reaction of internal damage. A single pod malfunctions, and passenger Jim Preston, played by Chris Pratt, a mechanical engineer, awakens prematurely. Now stranded alone, Jim discovers he has woken up 90 years too early. The ship's systems assure him all is well, failing to understand or diagnose the pod failure. Attempts to send a distress message to Earth are met with the reality of deep space communication delay. It will take decades for a message to arrive, and just as long to receive a reply. His efforts to access restricted crew areas for help are thwarted by heavy security protocols. As the months drag on, isolation begins to erode Jim's spirit. His only companion is Arthur, played by Michael Sheen, an android bartender in the ship's lounge, programmed with friendly banter but limited emotional depth. Jim spends his days roaming the luxury zones of the ship, indulging in food, games, and holographic entertainment, but the loneliness becomes overwhelming. Eventually, he contemplates suicide, standing in an airlock ready to end it all, until he accidentally sees Aurora Lane, played by Jennifer Lawrence. Aurora, a writer from New York, lies peacefully asleep in her pod. Fascinated by her biography and drawn to her personality through archived videos and articles, Jim becomes infatuated. Wrestling with his moral compass, he struggles for months with a devastating decision: to wake her and rob her of her future or continue his descent into madness alone. Eventually, he revives Aurora, allowing her to believe her pod also malfunctioned. At first, she reacts like Jim did, panicked and disoriented, but gradually comes to accept her fate. She resumes writing, capturing the surreal tragedy of their situation. As time passes, the two form a bond, and a romantic relationship blossoms. They share dinners, dance in zero gravity, and find joy in each other's company. For a brief period, life aboard the ship feels full again. But the illusion shatters when Arthur casually reveals to Aurora that Jim was awake for over a year before her, implicating him in her awakening. Feeling betrayed and violated, Aurora is devastated. She sees Jim's actions as tantamount to murder. He stole her life, her future, and the choice she never got to make. Though Jim begs for forgiveness, Aurora isolates herself, unable to reconcile his desperation with her stolen autonomy. Soon after, another passenger awakens. Gus Mancuso, played by Lawrence Fishburne, a senior crew member whose pod also malfunctioned due to ongoing ship-wide issues. Gus grants them access to vital parts of the ship, revealing that the Avalon is failing. Dozens of critical systems are breaking down: climate controls, life support, navigation, threatening the lives of the 5,000 still sleeping passengers and crew. As Gus's health deteriorates rapidly, his body unable to survive the damage from improper awakening, he entrusts Jim and Aurora with his crew credentials before dying. Now working together, the pair uncover the root of the malfunctions. The ship's fusion reactor is failing due to damage from the asteroid strike 2 years prior. They must repair the system or face catastrophic failure. The final repair requires venting the reactor's plasma from outside the ship, a process that can only be done manually. Jim volunteers, despite the extreme risk. As he prepares for what could be a suicide mission, Aurora admits she still loves him and can't bear to lose him. Jim enters the vent tube and manually opens the release valve, enduring extreme heat and pressure. Though the venting is successful, the blast severs his tether and sends him tumbling into space, unconscious and nearly out of oxygen. Aurora manages to rescue Jim and use the ship's automated medical pod, the Autodock, to resuscitate him. With the reactor stabilized, the Avalon returns to normal. Later, Jim discovers the Autodock has the capability to function as a single hibernation pod. He urges Aurora to return to stasis and live the life she intended on Homestead 2. However, Aurora chooses to remain awake with Jim, realizing that despite everything, she no longer wants to live without him. 88 years later, The ship arrives at Homestead 2. The awakened crew finds the Avalon's once sterile Grand Concourse transformed into a thriving garden, with a giant tree at its center, birds flying, and a rustic cabin built from the ship's materials. Aurora's voice narrates her final message: a story of love, loss, survival, and a life lived fully, however unexpected. Please subscribe below and check out more of my movie recaps.